Hi, welcome to my shop. I'm Rob Cosman. A few years ago, while teaching in England, I had the great pleasure of meeting one of today's premier carvers, Chris Pye. I was not only impressed with Chris's work, but his ability to teach it. I've invited Chris over to our shop. In previous videos, he's taught us how to sharpen, how to carve letters. Today, we're going to have a lesson in ornamental carving. Sit back and enjoy because this is going to be fun. Just before we start, let's take a second and talk about safety. You know, it's power tools that usually get most of the attention when it comes to safety issues in the shop, but this chisel is deceptively dangerous. It's extremely sharp. If you keep both hands behind the cutting edge, you're probably going to be safe. Most important, pay close attention, follow any manufacturer's instructions that may come with the tools, and enjoy your woodworking. Chris, thanks for coming back.
You're welcome. Nice to be
I'm
here.
excited about what we're doing today because you so simplified the letter carving, I was able to do it. I know I'm going to be able to do this.
I'm sure you
So
are.
tell me, where do we start?
Okay, well, I better start by telling you what we're going to be doing.
Okay.
This is an example of what we might call ornamental carving, which is quite a shallow type of carving. It doesn't involve big three-dimensional movements that you have in, say cabriole legs or this sort of thing. It's much more cuts that are put into the surface that then produce the effect. So it's almost a little bit, here you'll see a little bit of what looks like chip carving, where we're taking out units of wood. But there's also a bit of shaping and so on. And this particular design that I've got here, I've chosen because it's got, for two things. First of all, it's very useful in its own right. It's a lovely bit of work in that it's a very beautiful little bit of carving, but then it's very adaptable. You can have it as a square, like here. You can see this. This is the one we'll start with. This is little four-leafed, what they call a patterer, which is a symmetrical bit of carving. Sometimes it's round, sometimes it's square. But you can imagine that little square here put on the corners of, say, a fireplace or the corners of chair legs or table, top of table legs where the square block is. You could imagine it repeated as a pattern, almost like a sort of moulding along the side of a picture frame or something. Lots of places you could use a little decorative item like that. You can also flex it by making it a different shape. Say here we flex it into a diamond shape. It's the same sort of, exactly the same cuts, but we've moved the design a little bit. Here we've done the same thing but made it three-corner. Here I've made it smaller and four-corner. This is another three-corner one here. So we're able to adapt the design to different situations. So it's just a great design. And here I have just an example of, well, it's a photograph of an example of this exact carving that I did 25 years ago, in the days when everything was in black and white. And you can see there that has been adapted to a particular little Gothic type ornament at the top of what is a hymn board. So that's just one example of where you can use it with other elements, such as a little quatrefoil in the middle here, to make something very interesting, very decorative. And many bits of furniture really, you add that little bit of decorative carving like this, and suddenly, you've got something very special. Yeah. Most people, when they look at a piece of furniture, you see the carving, it stands out and it moves that bit of furniture from, something which could be a bit machine-led, a bit straight, to something which is now a bit more human, something a bit more...
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah,
That's
and there are many, many examples of decorative ornamental carving. I mean, there's huge numbers, and you have to look at, other bits of carving, other bits of furniture in museums, and you'll see these around. But a lot of them will have similar techniques to what's going on here. So this is just one example. I'm not showing you the whole of decorative carving. It's just one example of something we could do. But within this example are lots of techniques we can use to explore other forms of decorative carving later. So what we'll actually do is, you can see on this board here, we can bring this from the beginning where we draw it out, step by step, till we get to the carving in the end. Although it looks complicated when it's finished, it doesn't start like that. And that's one of the things about this decorative work. You look at it and you think, oh, that's really complicated. How does that work? But of course, it's all built up, a bit like knitting one stitch at a time. You eventually get to the final the final product. So we're going to go through step by step by step, and we follow the logical sequence, and we'll get to that in the end. And
we're going to work in something mild enough to...
Yes, I think it's very important with all this carving is that we do a lot of practice. It's no good doing this once and then going into your nice bit of furniture. You want to do this quite a few times so you're really comfortable with it. And I always suggest that you start off with a very mild piece of wood. This is basswood, which is equivalent to our English lime wood. It's a very nice carving wood, and you can get yourself a board and just start playing with this over and over again. Because some woods, such as cherry and maple, are very hard, and you've got enough problems working out what you're doing without having to worry about the hardness of the wood. So when you know what you're doing, you might need a mallet even for hardwoods to help yourself, but you'll be able to adapt it to the hardness. So certainly practice in something like basswood or something similar to begin with.
What about tools? What are we going to use different than we did with our letter carving?
Well, some of the tools are similar, but it's a much more smaller bit of carving. Therefore, we're not going to use such large tools. We will use a little gouge like this. This is a middle sweep gouge, about a number 7 or 8 in the Sheffield list, and we're going to use that for making our button, or the little boss in the middle of the carving here. We'll also be using a V-tool for the first time, and we'll use that for going around the outside and for separating things. So we'll be using this one. In fact, that'll be the first tool we'll use. And then we've got...
How would we identify this, Chris, as, compared to other V-tools? Is there a measurement that...
Very good point. This is V-tools come in different angles of V. This one is in the middle and is 60 degrees. So this is a 60-degree angle that the V makes. You can also buy a 90-degree, which is a more open angle, and a very tighter angle, which is 45 degrees. But for most carving work, you find the one in the middle, 60 degrees, is fine. So this is just a 60-degree V-tool, or the old name was a parting tool. And this is the one we'll use for going around the outside. This is a standard gouge, meaning that it's regular in the sense that it's parallel sided, but we're also going to be using these fishtail gouges. Here's a little fishtail.
Right.
And here you find that the gouge has a long shank and then splays at the end. And what that does, it gives you, it emphasizes the corners, because you can see here or in the piece itself that we actually have to go down deeper, and you'd find that a square end would be a little tricky to get into there. They're sharpened in exactly the same way as ordinary gouges, but you just really want to protect those corners because we're going to use them. We're also going to use the fishtail chisel. This is one we saw in the lettering carving. In fact, we saw both of these in the letter carving when we were cutting the serifs. So they're very useful tools anyway. There are no tools that are special for letter carving, and there are no carving tools that are special for this work. There are carving tools. We use them in particular ways, and we apply those techniques to different projects. So I don't have, there's not a particular decorative technique that I'm going to be doing here. I'm going to be doing basic, good carving, and I'm applying it to this bit of ornamentation. We'll apply it somewhere else, we will get a different result. So you can certainly have this tool, the regular gouge, in a fishtail, but I think for decorative work, fishtails do have the advantage in they're light, quite delicate tools, and they work quite well for this sort of work.
What is the sweep on this fishtail?
Well, it doesn't. I've got two here. We will in fact use two. One is a little flatter, and one is a little what they call quicker, meaning a bit bit of a tighter curve. This one is the flattest sweep you can get, so that's a flat gouge effectively. This one's a couple of sweeps up, so it's about a number 5. It's a little bit adaptable. Something around those will do well. We'll use this fishtail here for getting into the side walls there. But all this will come, how we use it, that'll come when we start doing it. Yeah, I think there's just these 4 tools, 5 tools here. We can do all these different designs. So it's amazing what we can do with a limited number of tools.
Chris, can you tell me anything about the handle as far as what do you look for?
Well, these handles here, those were actually on the tool when they came. Generally, I like to make my own handle, partly because all our hands are different. And if I've got a small hand, I don't necessarily want the same big handle that you might have if you've got a large hand. So the handles are a bit different, and they're very personal. I think that this is the different. This is where the tool is meeting me, as much as anything else. I mean, sure, I would have my hand on the blade, but it's a very personal thing, a handle. So I like to make them out of woods that I know. This piece of wood, I know where it came from, who gave me it, what part of the job it was, and it becomes very personal. And one of the things is when we're carving, we will put our tools on the bench like this, in front of us. This is a good discipline to have, a bit of bench discipline. The tools are like that because if you just throw the tool down like this, then you're in danger of hitting the other tool and of course damaging the edge, which you've spent a long time sharpening and preparing. Right. So you want to lay the tools down like this on the bench. And if you have bought a lot of tools that are all the same, I mean, I've got markings on my handles, but you can see that those handles are very similar. Now, if you put the tools this way round, which is also perfectly acceptable, it doesn't really matter which way round, then your eye goes to these handles first of all, and what you see is a load of the same handles, and it's a little bit confusing. So having different handles, you can readily recognize, say, the difference between this tool and that tool immediately. Yes. I like to have the blades towards me, and they're perfectly safe from cutting you as long as there's nothing behind them, as long as there's nothing here. So you could you could bump into them and all you do is knock them backwards. But as soon as there's anything here behind them, then that is very dangerous. Obviously, you have a very sharp point, and you must never have them sticking up like that, free. So you can put them on the bench at the back like that. And different handles will enable you to, that will certainly help you to distinguish the tools, but also you're seeing the blade first and not the handle anyway, so you're able to identify them, because what you want for this work is, and most carving is a rhythm.
Yes,
fluid. You want fluidity. Yeah, right, absolutely.
Right. What about bench height?
Good. That's a very good question. I think that's probably one of the most difficult things to get right in carving. I'm standing here, and I want to be able to work on this with only a slight bend in my back, or certainly hardly anything. I'm trying to keep upright and protect my back. If that bench is too low and I'm down here all the time, then before long I'm going to get quite bad backache. So most furniture making benches are too low. They are too low because they're designed obviously to get over the work with your plane, to prepare the surfaces. So what I recommend is either you can block the feet of the bench up, lift the bench up itself, or you make yourself a separate little carving platform which you just clamp onto the bench, and it's big enough you can put your tools on. So you've almost got a separate little carving bench that you just can put on and then take away when you're not carving. So that's another way that works. It doesn't have to have a vise on it, it's just a platform and enough that you can put clamps on, something sturdy. And the height, well, that will vary from carver to carver, and you've got to sort of try and work out what it would be, the height it would be if you want to stand upright in a fairly comfortable position, something like this. Anything like that is obviously too low. So it's a little bit of trial and error. You might like to mock up something with some blocks of wood just to see what works, and then make something that actually gets you to that height. But yes, it's a very important point. You want to be comfortable. You want to have good lighting, especially a bit of lighting that comes across, so you can see the shadows, because carving's all about light and shadows. All about light and shadow. This is very surface carving, and as the light comes across, it picks out the light and the shadow.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
If you've got lighting, fluorescent lighting coming straight down, it just blanks everything out and you can't really see what you're doing. So you need good lighting coming at the side, usually a couple of angle poises, that sort of adjustable lighting system help a lot. You need a good, the working at a good height. You need to be comfortable because you're going to be at this. So why not have a comfortable life? There's no,
Yeah,
there's
absolutely.
no moral high ground in suffering for your carving. So, and then with your piece of wood, either you can clamp it down or you can just tack it. I sometimes use hot glue gun. Just a tack.
Good
Of
idea.
that works well. Just temporarily to put it down there. If it's very small, double-sided tape. Whatever it needs. And then when you've practiced, when you're really confident about what you're doing, then you go to a bit of furniture. Because obviously you want to make sure you're going to get that right.
Yeah. Are we ready to start?
I think you are.
Okay. Let's go.
Rob, before we actually start the project proper, I want to show you two ways of holding the carving tools. These are the ways I use for all my carving 99% of the time. They're good, you get good tool control, they're quite powerful grips. These are what I use for carving. So I need to show you those first of all, and these are the grips I'll be using throughout the project. So the first grip I use where the tool is coming low to the wood. So this would be any cut where the tool is coming down here as opposed to coming more vertical.
Right.
So this is a low angle grip. How this works is one hand goes over the tool between the blade and the handle, like so. It's good to put your thumb up here because it just extends the length of grip that you have as opposed to that. Do you see, you get that extra bit of sense of it. This hand will be gripping the tool and then resting on the wood.
And this would be my dominant hand?
No, because we're going to do this, we need to be able to do this both ways.
Okay.
I'll explain that, because this hand, how this works is that this hand resists, the low hand resists the pushing from this hand, and it's the balance of the two that makes you able to sort of start and stop where you like. If I was pushing like this, if I was to release this hand, this would go forward, but similarly, if I was to release the other one, it would go back. It's not, this is a two-handed grip where they're working together. But it works well like this, but imagine I want to come in this direction. Well, what do? Well, I swap hands and I come this way. That's why this is one you need to be able to do with both hands. So now one hand is on the blade and the other hand is on the handle, but the opposite to what it was before. Okay, so the rule is in carving that one hand is always on the wood. Okay, so there's no time I'm like this where there's a gap underneath, except if I'm using a mallet, that sort of work. But generally speaking, this hand, or sometimes the whole forearm, and you can see my body will be sort of braced against the floor like this, and I'm actually got my arm in and I'm pushing it like this. The more the arm's out here to the side, the more stress there is. So you want to keep your arms in and try to use your body. There's a lot of power in the body, a lot of control by doing like so. Would you like to try the tool?
Yes,
see if you can.
So
one hand there.
Hands touching the wood.
Yep.
Thumb is up here along the handle.
Yes.
And this is in my palm.
Yes, wherever's comfortable.
Right.
Yes.
Where I can get power.
That's
and
it.
I'm resisting. This hand is always resisting this hand.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. That's
so I'm
sort of
coming
thing.
in a low approach and tight to the body.
Yeah.
So I have lots of control.
That would be
okay.
Absolutely.
Turning that around. That feels a little bit...
Sure, it does feel awkward, but the advantages of being able to do that are enormous for carving. And I don't know any good professional carvers who can't do that. It's a very natural thing to do. And as it feels odd to begin with, because you haven't done this before, you might as well right from the start get to do that. But that looks good.
Okay, and I'm squeezing the blade.
Yeah,
obviously.
You just want enough pressure to do the business. You don't have to be very tight, because what people do is they get very tense up here in the shoulders. It's very much sort of finding the right balance and using your body weight to make the tool to move, rather than just it's all from the arms and the wrists. So it's carving's a whole body thing, really.
Okay.
Okay, so that would be a low level grip. That's a better grip than, say, holding it like this, which is a very difficult grip. Your arm's locked or this way where you just have this completely slack. It's what I call a snooker grip, where somebody's just resting their hand on the blade and sort of, it doesn't really do anything. It keeps it to the wood, but it's not the same as gripping like this, really taking control of the tool. Carving's all about control, controlling what happens, you know, and getting the result you want. So that's fine, but this is this low angle grip, and that would be the first grip we use on our exercise. Now when the tool comes down like so, suddenly my elbow has to come up and it's outside my body, and it's now much more stressful. So when we're coming down like this, if I'm not using a mallet, then I'm usually doing some sort of more delicate work anyway. So I switch to what I call I've called it a pen and dagger grip, but that's not so helpful because people hold their pens in different ways. But what happens is this hand slides up, this one comes down like this. So now I've got the blade held more vertical, like so, in a cone of around this sort of area, where my fingers are gripping the blade, and the fingers of the other hand are holding, this would be the dagger bit, holding the handle like so. So how this works is you're actually pinching the blade. So you'll be pushing with a thumb or pulling with a finger. These two are doing a lot of operating. Then to get this hand on the wood, the palm's there, but I actually put my finger here behind the blade, and this acts as a sort of fence. And then these other two fingers I tuck either here or there, wherever they're comfortable, buttressing the first one. So I'd be holding it like so. That would be a basic sort of grip, and it's two hands working. So this hand would manipulate the handle, turning it or moving it, but this hand's also working. All the time we're working together. Now when the tool is over to my left, as I'm looking at you, it becomes a sort of open grip like so, and this fingers has moved to underneath. So I'm actually sitting on that ridge between the nail and the, it's probably got some sort of technical name, but it's the ridge between the nail and the skin, the knuckle there, and that sort of comes at the back and sits on the floor again, not up here, but right in close as you can.
Right, lots of control.
Okay, yeah. So and my hands are apart like so. When I'm coming from this side, the hands are sort of crossed over. Do you see? And this time that it's moved from the back to here. And one of the things we'll do quite early on, we'll do a little exercise where we'll actually have to work our fingers round and sort them all out. So it's a very good little way of doing it. People do hold these slightly differently, and you have to adapt the grip to different things that you're doing. But you don't have to swap hands with this one, but you do have this crossed over effect like so.
So this is my dominant hand.
Yeah, that's right. This would be your dominant hand here down the bottom. I can do it this way if I have to, but I rarely have to swap hands because I'm working in this way. If I'm coming down low, then I'd switch to the other grip.
Right.
Where that can be useful though is you can come down low in this grip towards yourself like this. We saw this when we were doing serifs in the letter carving, and we'll see this again in this in this project we're doing. So would you like to just have a go at that? Yep. Put your fingers in the position.
The dagger.
Yep.
And the pen.
That's right. So have the tool more upright.
More upright.
Yeah. Just more vertical so we can.
Now my thumb can either be up here or it can be.
Yes,
I would find it more comfortable up there.
Absolutely, I tend to put my.
My palm is doing the anchoring.
So put the tool to the wood for the moment.
Yeah.
Okay, so this finger tucks in a bit like that behind.
Yeah.
Like that.
Oh, okay, okay, on the side. Okay,
yep.
Okay.
That's it. And then all your little fingers here, you can buttress them up. Bring them out and put them in there like that.
Okay,
so
here on the side.
So you're stacking them together.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
And that you can now feel that's quite a firm grip.
Yes, it does. It anchors the cutting point.
You're holding like this. That's closing your fingers, but you want to sort of grip the tool properly across. Okay. So sometimes on a bigger tool, you've actually got your thumb inside the hollow of the gouge. But something like that, that's fine. Yeah. So if you bring this hand over.
So if I'm over like this.
Now you see how this hand here has come like this? It's actually easier if you just swap this handle hand, just bring it like this, and then you're gripping like so. Do you see? You make a pinch.
A pinch here.
There you go.
Yep.
And this is what I was saying to you a little while ago, saying about this muscle here. Carvers have quite a good pinching muscle here because they're gripping it like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be where the tool's coming from. That
So
side.
that's definitely going to take some practice.
Yeah. And this, so yeah, that looks about right. It does. It feels a little bit awkward, but believe me, when I've taught students this, by the time they've done the project a few times, they are just doing this fairly automatically. But the thing is, it's two hands. It's the tool coming vertically, and you sort your fingers out. But something, the finger and thumb are definitely gripping the tool and doing the work.
Right.
And these fingers are right up close to the blade, and they're acting as a sort of fence to support the control.
Or an anchor point.
Or an anchor point.
Yeah.
And you see the tool's not wobbling, it's very under control. Even though it feels awkward, you know what you're doing. So again, you'd be in fairly close. Sometimes you can bring your shoulder in here like this, to actually, for other work. We won't be doing it here, but you can actually use that to add extra pressure.
Okay.
So we'll be using those two grips, and as I say, they, although they might feel odd, and of course they will because you haven't used them before, and you probably also don't have the muscles. That's the other thing, is carving uses a different set of muscles to what you might use for woodworking. And if I did another craft, I'd have another set of muscles I need to develop. So to some extent, when you're learning to carve, you almost have to wait for the muscles to sort of build up the strength. It'd be the same if I'd never planed before. I might have to develop a set of muscles. So don't be put off if it feels a little awkward. The real secret is to continue using those grips. Don't default to some old grip you had and until they become second nature. And then you don't even think about them. That's how you carve. And the muscles and the body memory will be in there.
Okay.
So you have to persist on that, but you'll get it.
Yeah, wonderful. I will.
Okay, so now we will get on doing the work.
Okay, very good.
Okay, Rob, so what we'll do first of all, we'll draw out a sort of structure which we'll then carve. And for our first project, our little corner leaf here, the four-sided corner leaf, what we need is a 2 inch by 2 inch square, something like that, 2.5 centimeters. So I'll just draw this out first. I'll get myself a line here. This will be the top line. And I'll do 2, and then you can
do one of them?
Do one of them. So I can do this one by this old method of rule of thumb. Let's make this a bit longer here. So there's one side. So I'll just measure 2 inches across here. And then I'll put the other one along here, that's the one you can do. Now, you've got to decide if you were doing this, how close you want these together, if you're doing a lot of them.
Right.
And the more you bunch them up, the more they look really nice. So certainly, think about doing series that look, together. So just, you don't need to do this, it's fairly straightforward, and then we can get on the carving. So what I do here is I'm going to do diagonals. And you could, of course, do a whole row like this and then just work your way through as the exercise. And like so. So I'm doing the diagonals. So I've got my 2 inch square. Draw my diagonals here reasonably accurately. Then I also need to split this. These are where the leaves will come out. So I need to split this way as well. So really I've got little, well, it'd be like a Union Jack in Britain. Little, I don't know what you would call that. Okay. Oops. Okay, so there's a layout for my first square. That's fairly straightforward. Square, diagonals, and then you can put this in. And this line, of course, you can go across. So there's our starting pattern. That's the grid on which you would put the carving. And you'd want to obviously work that out and lay that. If you were putting these together, you'd lay that all out, and then you work your design in there. Right, the first thing we're going to do is this little boss in the middle. Well, not the boss itself, but create a sort of sense of it. We'll actually finish the boss right at the end. But here we'll be looking at creating this sort of effect. The nice thing about this is it's a good exercise in telling us how carving tools work. First tool we use is this one, which is a sort of number 8. It's a fairly shallow middle gouge. But let me show you what these tools can do. If I was to push that straight into the wood like that, upright, pull it back so that the one corner is clear of the wood and move it round, push it in again, lift it clear, so it follows the track, its track, it will come all the way around and produce a complete circle. And that's what defines a gouge. There's some gouges which are U-shaped that you can't use like this. Right. So here we've got a complete circle. Okay, so now if I was to keep doing that, the wedge of the bevel would pop this out. So we have to be careful we don't pop this off. But we'll start. This is called this is effectively a stab cut, which is basically going straight in, and that's going to protect our grain, and it will disappear in the end because we'll be shaping around it. And this is where we start right in the middle here with this. And you have to sort of do this by eye. It's not worth putting a compass on or anything. And if these are slightly different, they're leaves. Right. They're leaves, you know. Yeah. So
no two leaves alike.
That's right. And the more they have that sort of human touch, the better. Obviously, they don't have to be so different that you think, what was he thinking? But right. So we want to line this up so it's about in the middle. Okay. So make your first. A light stab cut like that, where you get, and this is a pen and dagger grip, straight down, yeah, and I move the tool around and I go lightly round like this, and somewhere in the middle, I'm slightly off, but that's certainly middle enough, is where my circle is. So this will be the first thing. So once I've gone round lightly, stabbing it in, lifting the corner, setting in again, lifting the corner, down again, and down again, and I go round and I push that in fairly firmly.
And you're keeping that chisel vertical.
Vertical. Okay, so that would be my first step. So if you'd like to do that on yours. Okay. So it's a pen and dagger grip with the tool vertical.
Line that up.
So you line that up. So a light pass first, and then you, of course, if that wasn't so good, you can always adjust it. Yeah, that's great. A pen and dagger, so keep this finger right in close. There you go.
Okay, I'm lost on how should my hand be?
Okay, one of the things you've got to do is adjust your fingers as you go around, but basically you'll have one finger here, just protect it, you know, however you put it, it'll be something between the blade and the wood that sort of just firms up that position.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
So I'm giving my...
It doesn't matter where it is, but somewhere in here, this finger will be there.
Okay.
So this middle finger is touching the wood. Make sure that's touching the wood.
Okay, so
it's important that, you know, we have two hands. This blade hand is touching the wood. Yeah, that's fine. Your blade hand is always touching the wood, and in the pen and dagger grip, this high angle grip, it's got to be the fingers as much as the palm at the back here. So that's good. How you got it there is a lovely position.
Okay, now I want to go in and just deepen that stab
What
cut.
you mustn't do, keep this vertical. You mustn't lever at all, because obviously that'll break the wood out. Always lift
the cutting edge.
You want to do that because that'll tear the wood through. That's good. So the lead corner is clear until you stab in down. Okay. So again, what this does is a little exercise. It helps us, you know, get a sense of how our fingers are going to be as we go around. So, you know, I'm keeping my fingers. Sometimes my fingers on the outside, sometimes it's on the inside, but it's there as a little sort of buttress. Right. That's a really good way. You want to try and get into the habit of doing this. A lot of this is about habit, and what happens is that, you know, you think, oh, that doesn't feel right, and you end up being up here. Well, you can, you know, you can certainly do it like that, but this is such a good habit to get into.
Yeah.
Okay, so now, if you thought that was a little tricky, this again is an exercise in sorting your fingers out. This is why I think this is so good. What we've got to do is use this middle fishtail gouge to see if we can take an angle cut all the way around, so we can lift out a shaving, and that will clear this this little boss in the middle.
And we're approaching this at 60?
This is something like 60. It doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, all this is going to be carved away. So it doesn't matter if this is a bit rough. We could just cut it away, chunk, 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 chunk. But this is a little slick. sort of method, very quick method, and also, more than anything else, helps you learn how to manipulate the tools. So again, pen and dagger, this time at 90. I start the cut here, like this, and at some point, probably about 1/8 of an inch out, like so, yeah, I'm getting to the point where I want to be in terms of the width. So what I have to do now is continue the cut around, like so, like this, and you see my hand here,
Yeah.
I can't, I'm going to break my wrist of a cone, I have to flop over this way and continue that cut round here, and then close the cut. And if it goes well, it sort of all pops out like that. It's not very even, because I'm chatting and not paying a lot of attention, but on a good day, that would be a bit more even round here. So what you've got is just a way of going round in a quick slicing motion. And once you've set the tool up to roughly the angle you want, then it's a matter of keeping that exactly the same position, dragging this trailing edge against your cut until it pops out. So it's a little tricky, but great fun.
So you're always keeping the bottom, the point,
yeah, the point
at the bottom of the perimeter of that little circle.
Yes, this one that we went down here,
Yeah.
that creates the bottom of where we're going with the corner to this one. Now, what I would say is it's very easy to put that corner underneath the wood, and then you're undercutting it, and then this will come out. So you don't want to go too far in. Certainly don't want to go into the boss. So since you can't see what you're doing, you've all got to do it by feel and the sense of the tool. So it's a little tricky. You probably, well, we'll see how we do it now. But if you don't get it right, it doesn't matter, the ways of correcting it. But this is where you could just get yourself a piece of wood and just have a go. In fact, let me do this again on this one. This would be quite good to show you one more time. So you could, just for practice, you could make a few of those, and you could start this, just practice this. So you're coming here. I start towards myself, just a little nick there, and then I'm coming round with the tool here. Then I get to the sort of width I want. And you see here my grip is a bit crossed over. Yeah, and as I come round like so, and now my hands are more open. Okay, and my hand from being the dagger is turning into this way. Okay, so I've come round here. I should pay attention, I have to flip my hand over, and I'm coming round here to finish off. A good thing to have is a brush like this that you can actually just sweep away the tool. So this is the shaving. So this is always, it doesn't really matter if this is a bit torn up. The important thing is to protect the boss in the middle.
Right.
All yours.
Okay. So we got our pen and dagger. We're going to start with...
Yeah, not too high an angle. Don't try to go too deep. We can always make a second pass.
Okay.
Okay, so the handle's swinging, going to swing right round. There you go. Okay, keep that leading. The lead corner is always going to be clear of the wood. This hand, Rob, swip this hand over to here, into that pinching grip. There you go. You should be gripping. Don't move.
Yeah.
Grip the thing. Yeah. So you're controlling the blade. Get this finger down here. Yeah. No. Just relax here. So you grip the thing. There you go. So now you're really you've got a sort of fence as you go around.
Yeah.
Keep the handle. And finish the cut. Hey. That's not bad at all. Well, you can go back and repeat this cut here to nick out that wood. So if you'd like to do that, put the tool down, remember, like that, so it's safe. Get this middle finger down.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, it's just one of those habits. People have these habits, and I nag them to death, you know. Okay. Oh, you have to swing the handle round. Keep gripping it. Pinch the tool. There you go. See if it pops away now. That's fine. So this is a little bit of waste, no problem. That's all going to come away now. But what you've got is a nice, clean, little. It's a little cylinder sitting. I called it a boss or a button. It's probably got several names, but I tend to call it a boss or a button. But this is now a little cylinder sitting proud of this waste around the background. So that was a bit tricky, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, it's the grip.
It's the grip.
I think once I have the grip,
yeah,
Yeah.
It's a little difficult to explain that grip. I mean, at the end of the day, I just do it. But I think once you get the sort of the idea of it, you'll sort your fingers out and you keep doing it. Eventually, you'll have your way of doing it. And the most important thing is to be able to control that tool as it goes round, you know, at the right angle and make it come out. That's the exercise.
Yeah.
That's the fun bit. We could have just chopped it out, but hey, you know, that's really good.
Okay.
Well done. So with that, we'll move on to the next stage. Right, so our next stage now is to outline the little corner leaf here, and then to create some separation between leaves. So there are like three steps. So the first step will be to outline. For this we'll use a V tool, and the grip here will be this low level grip that we talked about earlier. So there's the low level grip. Now before we do it, I'll just we're going to go around here, just a couple of points. To make this look neat, it's best if we decide exactly where this cut is going to go. In the same way as when you cut it with a saw, you put the kerf to the waist side of the line, therefore you're accurate. Here, our line can represent the edge of the carving, but also the edge of the piece that's in between. So if we put our line to the inside, you know, when we cut our groove to the inside of the line on towards the carving, then what we're left with is a very neat line around where it meets this plain surface of the wood. So don't go on the line, go inside the line.
Inside the line. Okay.
Okay. And the second thing is, when we go along with the grain, we don't really know whether we're going with it or against it, because that depends on how it's rising or falling. Yes. So you want to be careful with this cut, make this cut tentative a little bit, and then you can always firm it up. And it might be that you have to do this left to right, or right to left. And this is where you can see being able to swap your hands around would be good. And it's quite good to do the across one first, because you can then run that line into there and it'll fall away. Whereas if I just was to come along here, this direction, then of course you're left with a shaving which you then have to cut off. When you come across like so, the shaving will fall away. Mm-hmm. So it's good to go across the grain first.
And then this will obviously end the minute we...
That's right, this will butt into that one. But you see how tenacious it is, so it just gets in the way. So here we go. Rest on the wood, so we're not over here. You can actually rest properly on the wood like so. Present the tool on the inside of the cut, and you're resisting with this hand, pushing with this hand, and you can just come forward like so, with the line like that.
And you're controlling your depth by controlling the angle that you approach.
Yeah, that's right. So I might do that a second time, but here I'm on the inside. Okay, and when I get to the end here, this will fall away. Otherwise, I can just brush it. I do one on this side, so I do the two cross grain cuts first.
Why the brush, Chris, instead of just knocking away with
your
hand?
That's a very good point. It's very easy, especially on hot days, if you're a bit sweaty or if you're handling your tools, that your hands are a little bit oily, and then you rub it on the wood, and you don't notice it, but you keep rubbing the wood, and before you know it, the wood has gone grubby. And there's no way of getting rid of that, especially on pale woods, without redoing the surface. Sometimes, and if it's a carving, it's recarving the surface. So right from the beginning, you want to try and keep the work clean. So instead of, so if it brushes away, that's good. I tend not to pick and pull. You can certainly flick with the back of the hand, and you can blow like that. Although it's considered really bad form to blow under somebody else's carving. So if you just blow on your own. So yeah, that's a good point. Keeping carving clean. It's such a pity when you see a grubby carving. With all the work that's gone into it, and then it just looks, it's not the same as a patina which comes with age. It's something that definitely shouldn't have happened. So now I've done the two across, I'm going to do this one going along like this. So I can start towards the end, again on the inside. This is nice even wood. See, this is slightly different where I'm creeping my hand across, but I'm still controlling, resisting, and those two will fall away here. Don't worry too much about.
And you're obviously going to come to that line. in the other
Absolutely, yep,
direction.
that's right. So I can do most of my work in this direction. Here I am on the inside. And you see that control, by resisting, I can stop exactly where I want. And I'll just make that slightly deeper there. And see if we can get that corner off.
So can you finish those corners sufficiently with that
Yeah,
tool
for this work, yes. I mean, if you want, it's not really precise work. This is, you know, a hand carved decorative thing on top. So there's a certain amount of hand work. You want to be able to see it. It's almost like it doesn't want to be too precise, too mathematical. So if you certainly don't want torn grain, you don't want things that look bad, but if it's not perfect, then it actually has a lot of more character. Yeah. So here's one coming up here. Now you have to excuse me a moment while I just come this way to finish into there. So I'm finishing that one off there, and see how useful it is to be able to turn around, so I can swap my hands like this or like this. So here's this one coming here, and I'll just finish that little bit off there. Okay, so there's my outside. And so to recap, I'm inside the line. I've gone across the grain in this way first, and the depth here should be something about a little bit less than the depth that we've gone to in the middle. So we don't want to make these too deep. It's not a very deep carving. Yep. So would you like to have a go at the going around the outline, and then we'll move on to the separating of the leaves?
Okay, we're going to do our cross grain ones first.
That's right.
I think I might actually need a little. That's better. So I'm starting just beyond the line.
Well, as close to the line as you can, but there's always a little.
This line, I mean.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, not on the not this side of the line, but as close as you can. Yeah.
And I want to leave the pencil line.
Yeah.
Cut right up to it.
Imagine that's the curve of a saw, and that you're cutting to the pencil line. There you go. Now, by resisting with this hand, you should be able to stop on the line. If you're just pushing, you can imagine that it's easy to push.
I got away from my line.
Okay, well, just firm it up. It's quite light. You can take a second pass, correct it, and again, it doesn't matter too much. You know, by the time the lines are raised, then that will still look fine. But obviously, we aim to be as tidy as we can. That's great. Good. So now we do the one on the other side.
Now, do you ever stop and break the chip just so that it's not in the way of my sight?
I don't, but there's nothing to stop you doing that if you, whatever works really. Right, so you would now firm that one up so they're even. Whatever depth you choose, they're the same. That's great. Good control. So you're pushing with this hand, resisting with that one, and the tool's going forward. And when you get to the place you want to stop, you stop. That's control. That's carving controlling the tool.
This should be a little bit deeper.
Boy,
I must say the tool is so nicely sharpened. That's effortless.
Okay, so now we go along along with the grain. Of course, this isn't a shaving you can break off halfway, but stop there. There you go.
Oh, way off. Now, I really couldn't see because of the shaving. Is there a...
It's a feel thing. You know, you just feel where that tool's going. And again, what's happening is you're concentrating on the grip. You're concentrating on, you know, me talking to you. All sorts of things are happening. So you've got a lot to think about. But when you've done this a few times, you know, you'll have more of the feel of the tool, and you'll follow the line. But you've been able to correct it, and really that won't make any difference when we come to the to this sort of decorative carving.
Should this hand be sliding along the wood, or should it be resisting until I need to move it forward?
It's sliding. It's either sliding along or doing a little bit of a shunting, sliding.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. There you go. Now, instead of pulling it, make
Yeah,
a cut this way,
this way.
and do the corner towards yourself, and see if you can just clean that.
Oops.
No, that's fine.
I went a little far. Okay, so now I'm going to come.
That's no, this here, Rob. This is what I call the harakiri school of carving. You don't really want to do this. And to get your body round like this, if you have to,
Okay.
come right over the work.
Okay.
A bit like a pool player who has to sort of get their body into that position. But you don't want to direct a carving tool towards your body. It's just not a good idea. Excellent. I think that's going to look better than mine. So now we have to just clean up these two this way here. There's nothing to stop you turning the wood around, of course.
Oh, switch hands. Right?
Yeah. You know, if you found it difficult to get at the other side, you can just turn the wood over and just clean it up. But generally in carving, you don't move the wood around because that's downtime. That's when nothing's happening.
I can see you having to take this out of the clamps.
Yeah. So, but that's great. Excellent. There you go. Right, so that's the outline. And as I said, we went across the grain first, and then we went along it, made light cuts, and then we firmed them up. And what you've got, whatever it looks like on the inside, you have now got a very neat outside line. So what you'll see when these patterns are lined up is you'll pay attention to this negative space. So this will actually become part of the actual pattern. So it's quite, it's really good that you've got that there. Okay, so now we're going to separate the leaves, and if you look at this, if you look at the actual finished one over here, you see there are 4 main leaves that go to the corners, and then they each have a little lobe. And you can see it here. We're going to create this effect. This is one leaf here, and there's a centre vein. There's the other leaf there. There's a centre vein. Yeah. So we know where these things go. So we have 2 things to do. We have to make the centre vein coming down here. And then in the opposite direction, we have to make the separation between the veins. Okay, so this time, instead of the V being a parallel line, it's actually going to sink down into the wood, create a shadow. You see, it's like a little delta shape. Okay, so it doesn't matter which order we do them in. We'll do this one first. So this is dividing the leaves. So from towards the boss in the middle, you just push the tool forward. Instead of going parallel like this, you try and think it down into the wood, and the chances are that you need to do it a couple of times, and gradually deepen that up. So that now goes dead on the line. Yeah, so it's thinner here, yeah, and as it goes down into there, it thickens up. Now this bit here, we're going to deal with that later, so we don't really have to clean it up at this point. We can just leave it. It's a waste of time to clean it up and then do more work on it. Right. So we've done one like that, and then we'd have to do this one. So I've swapped hands to come this way. This one might be a little bit of a problem because it obviously doesn't come off in the same way. If that did get in the way and you didn't want to, then you can just take your chisel and nick it off. But normally I just sort of leave them there, and I'll leave the one on the other side. So I've now swapped hands again, and I'm coming this way across here. Okay, and then I have the 4th one, and this is again, you have to sort of come over the work like that, controlling the cut. So I stop at the line. So I've got my 4 cuts here. So if you'd like to put those in now. So don't feel you have to do them in one go. You can do a light cut and then firm it up.
Now you're cutting center of the V is right on the line.
Right on the line, yeah.
And we're going deeper.
Deep, yeah. And we're trying not to hit the wall too violently at the end by controlling it. So really push that corner down. Okay.
Looks like it should be a little deeper.
Yeah. So if you had 5 leaves, or 3 leaves, you'd be doing 3 of these.
Right.
Obviously. No, I don't mean units. I mean, 5 leaves in the
Oh,
design,
okay, yeah.
or 3 leaves in the design, or 2 or whatever, however you do it. You wouldn't be making 4. You'd be making whatever number you chose. This is very adaptable. We could have a 5-sided design here with 5 leaves going out, or a 6-sided. We would divide them in the same way. So we'd make 6 cuts for a 6-corner leaf. Yep.
Okay. Obviously, we want them to be about the same depth.
Yep. Yep. It won't come off. You
That's
can
the one that
just
won't,
ignore it.
Okay.
Just ignore it. So now you swap hands and do the one on the other side. That's again. And you can see the virtue of swapping hands here very clearly,
Oh,
can't
yeah.
you? Yeah, this is a great exercise in tool control, because you have to really stop that tool and not slam into the wall on the other side. Great, and now we do the final one.
This one's got to come.
Yeah, that's a little bit awkward because you have to lean over.
Right, and I don't have an anchor for this hand against my body. That's
Not so good that way, but as long as you can do it. Normally, that doesn't happen very often. And another way of working is to have this board, tilted at an angle. That's quite interesting. We have it flat, but some people work at an angle. Okay.
Just a little deeper.
Excellent. Good. No, that'll do fine. So now we've got the outline, and we've got our 4 main leaves separated. And so this next cut is going to be the dividing middle vein in the leaf. So it goes in the opposite direction. So it starts now light over here, and then deepens towards the boss. So exactly the same grip and the same way of working. And stopping short there at the boss. So that comes down the middle of the line again. Swapping hands to come over this way. And then again I'm leaning over for this one. If that is the breaking is quite a lot, then the thing to do is to take a lighter cut so you don't have to resist. The tool's not going through so much wood, therefore there's less pressure pushing forward.
Right, and your ability to stop is greater.
Also, sorry Rob, I have to come over here and just cut down that one there. Okay, so if you want to do that.
Yep.
You can see how this is starting to build up a little bit step by step.
I'm afraid of hitting that little button.
Well, remember, as we're practicing here, it's very important just to remember this is a piece of wood, and that if we're practicing and we make a mistake, then of course we just draw out another one and restart again, and we just keep going. So to begin with, this is going to be all a bit tricky. There's nothing like repeating it to get a sense of confidence. Now you've got a good grip there. You've got your thumb on the handle. That gives you a lot of control. This pushing hand is into the body.
Now, something happened that I saw it occurring. I know, maybe not. Am I in danger of breaking off this little piece right here?
It won't matter, because what we're going to do is all this is going to be textured over.
Okay.
So we're just dividing things up. This is like laying again the structure in which we're going to work. So again, you don't want bits to fall off. So as you go down, remember to keep the tool symmetrical, so you don't lean it to the left or the right. Make sure
Okay, I see.
Yeah, dead in the middle. Okay.
And it's all right to take short strokes.
Yeah, whatever is needed. But, you know, a longer stroke obviously can be a smoother cut, but sometimes you have to do it shorter, and that's fine. Remember to keep the V-tool symmetrical. Excellent. There you go. So these little bits here we just leave because they'll be dealt with in a moment. So what you've done now then, just to recap, you've been round the outside and with the same tool, you kept to the inside of the line, going across the grain first. So you went round the outside, and with the same tool, you separated the leaves into 4, and with the same tool, you put the midline. So there's your structure, and it wouldn't matter whether you've got 3, 4, 5 lobes here. You would just do that the number of times. So you'd separate that up. Okay, so that's our next stage. That's done. And with this, the next stage after this is we're going to start giving the ends of the leaves a bit of shape.
Okay.